Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back here to RaceSpot TV, and welcome back to the Radical Esports Cup. This is round number 11 of this season, coming to you today from Bathurst. My name is Ron Mullins. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Jeremy Scott. Ramiro Augustine Cisneros is our producer for tonight's broadcast. And now, Jeremy, the last time we did one of these broadcasts together was for week 4 at Suzuka, but we head to a much different track here at Mount Panorama. It is synonymous with sports car racing, both in real life and in the sim, and in these SR10s, I expect this race to be absolutely brilliant.
Oh, I love Mount Panorama. I've spent many late nights watching Aussie V8 supercars at Bathurst, 12-hour left and right, and really it's going to be interesting to see these cars in anger. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they'll go out of Hell Corner and down the Conrad Straight and up through Skyline.
Yeah, just the second to last race of this season here for Season 2 of 2025. Of course, this is the official series schedule here for the Radical Esports Cup, the official series, and these 2100 GMT broadcasted races that always put on a good show. Only one round after that being at Interlagos next time out in 1 week's time. We're going to look to crown a champion, and that championship fight is incredibly close between multi-year series veteran Rafa Blanco and reigning series champion here from the Radical Esports Cup, Havard Gullickson. Gullickson had a really disappointing show last time out at VIR, and that's allowed Blanco to jump into the championship points lead. 736 points is his tally heading into this race here, right towards the end of week number 11. James Berry, a 4-time reigning champion here in the Esports Cup, is slotted in 3rd. George Gonzaga right behind in 4th. It's all inert teammates in 3, 4, and 5 as Andreas Friedrich rounds out top 5 in the points. Heinz Braun in 6th. Andre Kasher has been a standout star in these 2100 GMT broadcasted races, is slotted in P7. Kettle Larson, Sully Wrighton, and Christopher Yanakis round at your top 10 in the points. Coming in to this second to last race of these 2100 GMT broadcasted races that you can catch week in and week out here on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. And a welcome to all of you tuning into this broadcast here tonight, right in the midst of qualifying now with a tick under 4.5 minutes left to go. This track is looking rather toasty as well. 21 degrees C, 69 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is rather perfect in terms of conditions, maybe a bit on the cool end. These cars got to put out some power, but these tires may have a bit of trouble getting up to temp.
Yeah, just a little bit of trouble, but nonetheless, I think with the long lap, I think it's not going to take more than one lap to get these tires up to pressure, especially with how twisty the top part of the mountain is. You can look at how beautiful it is in the Bathurst areas. We're starting to see times run come across the spot. I think I have returned. I may be battling with some brief connection issues here, Jen. So, Jeremy, got a copy on me, or have I got? Yeah, I got you. I got you now. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, so sorry about that. For some reason, I was like, oh, I was trying to get something loaded up on my PC, and right as I did that, I lost all audio. So my clearly decided to play some tricks on me. Hey, it may be about a month and some change late, coming up to 2 months late, but I guess my computer decides that now is officially April 1st, and it's going to be playing jokes on me all throughout this broadcast. Fingers crossed we won't have that issue, but these drivers have some issues on their hands, and that is the nature of this racetrack. In terms of very forgiving circuits, Bathurst is absolutely not one of them. With 23 corners in all, it is a real tough ride in these SR10s, and one of the longer laps that we visit all season as well. Havard Gullickson setting the pole time as it stands at the present moment at a 158.228. Not terribly far behind is James Berry, slotted in 2nd. Andre Castro, who's been very quick up to this point in the season, rounds out your top 3. But that is a statement lap there from Havard Gullickson. Rafa Blanco, his main championship rival, slotted in P6, and about a half a second between those drivers as well. Certainly around a track like this, with how long it is, plenty of opportunities to make up a half a second in a nearly 2-minute long lap, but at the same time, a half a second gain is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, 58.2 is something that the lap of gods wish it could be, and yeah, this is just an astounding lap as Castro now goes to the top. 57.9.
And Andre Castro putting in a barn burner of a lap time right towards the end of the session. Mats Gestrembakken, though, he jumps up to P5 in the number 11 car. That was a very good lap time from him. But there is your provisional pole sitter as it stands presently. It's Andre Castro. He nearly just got usurped by Kettle Larson, who jumps up into P2 very briefly as Christoph Lipp jumping into second now. That's going to be a good starting spot for the German in the number 1 car. Basically nothing between himself and Castro. 300ths of a second around a racetrack like this is no time at all. This track is nearly 4 miles in length, so for it to be separated by that little is insane, as that was a big slide. I believe that was George Gonzaga heading his way off through one of the first corners around this track. That was turn 4, the cutting, and cutting a hole into his tires with that slide.
Yeah, the cutting is such a tough corner to master, and no surprise that we saw that little tank slapper there. Van de Heurik with 0.4 of a second off of Castro's best time, again, a 57.9. That is the time to beat, and that is incredibly close between Castro and Lipp as we look on board with Andreas Frederick heading down into Conrad Straight. Let's see how he does through the chase here. Is you really got to get yourself set up, and with these SR10s, the downforce is going to be amazing to get through. Interesting that he's setting himself up. Does he go all the way to the left? Does not use the whole track, which is kind of interesting, but goes for a tighter approach through the cutting, around into the chase, heading towards Murray's corner. See what kind of time that he does this time buys. There's only 10 seconds left, so last chance for drivers to make times if they haven't done so. The Inner Race E-Racing team number 6 stays at 16th.
Yeah, not the best qualifying session performance from Andres Friedrich. He will start this race well farther in the back than he usually does in these races. This track is tough and could challenge veterans like Friedrich and just about anyone who decides to put on this combination. Still very fun and super rewarding if you can get right. Of course, these drivers gotta look to try and do that in this race that we have coming up. Let's get that starting grid loaded up for you right now, folks, so we can see that Andre Castro, the New Yorker, will start this race from the pole. Christoph Lipp set to join him on the front row. Kettle Larson will start in third. Alongside him will be his teammate of Havard Gullikson chasing that championship. James Berry, the 4-time champion in the history of the Esports Cup, will start in 5th. Next to Rafa Blanco contending with Gullikson for that season championship. Phil Van Hurk, a multi-year veteran of these SR10s, will start in 7th. Next to Sebastian Lipp, the brother of P2 starter Christoph Lipp, in 8th. Mats Gestrembakken will start in 9th. George Gonzaga in 10th. Joseph Dietz will start in 11th. Next to Heinz Braun in 12th. Looking at your 7th row, it is Paki Caruso and Luke Crowley. And 15th, it's Nicholas Handkut. In P16, my apologies, it's Andres Friedrich. In 17th, it's Logan Edwards. And P18, it's Kim Andre Björklund. Mimo de Graaf will start this race in P19 alongside Lars Freundland in the number 23 car. Rudolf Nagel will start in 21st. Alongside him will be Raul Pellicero, my apologies. Chris Wetz will start in 23rd next to Franco Alberti in the number 22 car. That rounds out your 12 rows in this race. Set to get started here in a couple of moments time. Again, standing starts here in this Radical SR10 official series. And folks, as my colleague and partner, Mr. Jared Gregory, has said many, many times in the past in these SR10 races, this is an official series, so you can turn out and run these races as the green flag's out and the drivers are on their way. That short run down into turn number 1. It's going to be a good jump from Castro. He'll lead them through hell corner of turn number 1. Looking like everybody will try and make it single file, except for some drivers a little bit farther in the back as they battle tooth and nail, goes side by side. Heading now down the mountain straight away off into turn number 2 of Quarry Corner. This is the spot where we may see some drivers go for some overtakes, some weaving a little bit farther in the mid-pack as these drivers look to get some tire temperature as they slam on the brakes and drop the anchors down into turn number 2.
Yeah, this is where things are going to get a little hairy, because if you want to make a move, you really got to be committed, because most of this area is going to be a single lane track from the cutting all the way through McPhellamy Park. As we do see some side-by-side action, a little bit of bravery, especially in the early part of this race. But still, your top 5, 6, 7, they're all single file as they make their way through the dip. Not the dipper, the dip. They'll be getting down to the dipper here shortly as they head up towards Skyline and into the S's. High commitment for the start of this race, and look at that single file SR10 run going through the S's.
And these SR10s, they're usually the cars that get the most screwed up when it comes to major sharp elevation change, whether it be a track like this or at the Nordschleife, which we have seen in the past in these SR10 races. Any sort of change with that front splitter's relationship with the ground can usually cause these drivers to skid off the track like there's no tomorrow. So that section, that's basically you turn into the corners, you hope you don't hit a wall, and you keep your fingers crossed that you don't spin. Then heading down the Conrad straightaway off into the chase. This is a part where these cars begin to shine. These SR10s, some of the most draft heavy cars here on the iRacing platform, and we're going to see that from the drop of the green flag all the way through to the fall of the checker. Heinz Braun and George Gonzaga were battling a little bit. I think Gonzaga in the number 13 car has been struck by falling anvils. He's dropping down the running order, was involved in a battle with Matt Stestrenbachen. He's now dropped all the way down to 14th as losing spots even more. I think he and Packy Caruso, who won the last race at VIR 1 week ago, have gotten involved in some major drama heading off to the final sector of this lap. They look to be on track, well, at least Caruso does. I believe we may have had a tow from Gonzaga, but as we ride on board with Rafa Blanco, he's going to try and get a move done down the inside, off into turn number 2, flashing the headlights as he goes side by side with his championship rival of Havard Gullickson, and he gets that move done to jump his way up to P5. Big for the championship and big move at the start of this race.
And he's going to lose another spot to Vandy Herrick. Let's take a look at this replay from the point of view of Joseph Dietz as they go through into the cutting and chase, I should say. Yeah, just shortcuts the chase. We're going to see a lot of that because you're going to have drivers coming off the Conrad straight. You're basically full throttle from Forest Elbow all the way into that braking zone of the chase. And like I said, the downforce is going to make things just a little bit rough as we go through the skyline once again. Vandy Herrick with a great showing so far. Just one off the top 5, Ron, but he's still looking to see if he can set sights on Rafa Blanco.
Yeah, seeing if he will be able to do that. The big thing about battling at the start of these races is don't let your competitors pull a massive gap. Once you lose that draft, chances are you're just going to fall back more and more and more. It'll be a snowball effect. So one thing that we are seeing a driver do is pull a big gap. That's what Andre Castro is doing at the front of the field as Kettle Larson and James Barry. They're going to have a side-by-side fight right behind our P2 finisher of Christoph Lipp. This will be for the final podium spot as they head their way off into the chase. Barry in that inert car, looking to get a move done around the outside, off into the chase. Larson deep on the brakes, heading down in there, but he's not able to clear Barry now. Look at Rafael Blanco. He's going to maybe try and size up a move in the 16 car. Will he go for it? Look at him weaving like a madman, heading down into the final turn, trying to get some sort of temperature on his tires. You can see the gravel strewn all across the racetrack through the final turn. Turn number 23 of Murray's. That corner, from my previous experience running here in the SR10s, I can assure you, is super, super tough. Getting the brakes nailed down is such a vital point in these SR10s, and if you run a little bit wide, you end up on the curb on the outside, which from my experience, we are in Australia, so I guess it's a rather fitting analogy. It's like a sharp tooth curb on the outside of that final turn.
I like that. I like that analogy there. And here's what's interesting. You know, Bathurst goes around technically a neighborhood. So, you know, this is interesting that normal days, it's just a regular street. Now, technically, this is a street course that these Radical SR10s are racing on right now. Looks like this battle for second place heats up between Lipp and Barry right now as they're going through. Andre Castro's in a league of his own right now as he goes through the top of the circuit, going through Solomon Park and McPhillamy Park, heading towards Skyline. Let's see what happens to Pelliceros. That's going to be tough too because these walls are unforgiving as he bashes and takes out someone else there, heading through.
That was a big one. Yeah, that was a big one right towards the top of the circuit. You can see more cars stacking up into that. Unfortunate for Raul. Oh my God, look at that getting T-boned out of nowhere. And that's going to take the Brazilian in that number 18 car out of this race. Dramatic way. Hey, if you're going to crash out of the race, you may as well make it absolutely spectacular. Granted, it feels real life you'd be killed, but you know, it's the sim. May as well make it spectacular.
Exactly. Go big or go home, especially down under, as we're back to single file formation going through the Conrad Straight and into the chase. Andre Castro, your leader so far. He's led from the start. Look at that slow-mo. That is Romero, our producer, doing a great job of just end over end over end. And now he's right side up in the Americas.
If our producer, Mr. Ramiro Augustin Cisneros, if you don't do it as well, Jeremy, I will have to send that into iRacing to clip that into the not top 10 highlights, because, wow, boy, that may be one of the most violent accidents I've ever seen in my entire time covering the Radical SR10 official series. And keep in mind, folks, this stretches all the way back to early March of 2023. I've been basically doing this series for as long as I've been doing broadcasting, so that's really saying something. That was a huge one, heading off to the top end of the circuits. But around a racetrack like this, which, as you brought up a couple of moments ago, Jeremy, outside of the bottom end of the track, you really have no runoff area around here. It is, technically speaking, a street circuit, so if you have a moment, especially at the top end, where it's basically racetrack, painted line, wall, nowhere else, really. So if you spin heading off through this part of the track, hit the wall, there's only one place you can end up, and it's either in the other wall or in the middle of the racetrack. And unfortunately, there, bang, bing bang zoom straight to the moon, and that's unfortunately what happened there to Paracello there. So that's an unfortunate way for his race to go, but hey, I hope he enjoyed driving this SR10. This is a car that is very, very fun once you get into the groove of things. Now, folks, you can take that however you want. Take it with a grain of salt. There's a very good reason why I'm behind the microphone instead of behind the wheel. But these drivers, there's a very good reason why you look at the likes of Andre Castro, Christoph Lipp, James Berry, Kettle Larson, Rafa Blanco. Just about everybody in this race is someone who I've covered in these SR10s, not only for the entirety of this season here for season 2 of 2025, but in multiple seasons and multiple years in the past. I mean, James Berry, he was a champion from about a year ago here from the Esports Cup, and he's now trying to get moved on Christoph Lipp, his teammate, down into the chase. Look at that. That's Berry, his happy hunting ground, down into the chase section. And for the second time in this race, first it was on Kettle Larson in the 8, and second time around, it's on Christoph Lipp in the 1. James Berry clearly happy about the way his car is handling through that section of the track.
Yeah, you really got to have a happy race car here at Bathurst. And I was just going to make a point. You know how we have a bunch of Australians who have won, or New Zealand, who have won at Bathurst, who are racing here in the States. My feeling is you have to be one of the best here to make it elsewhere. So no surprise that Andre Castro is looking really good so far. Opens up a 1.6 second lead, but I think this battle for second really is heating up. Lipp trying to do all he can to get that second place back. Larson also wants, as they work their way through Quarry Bend, heading into the cutting, which arguably I think is one of the toughest corners here on this circuit.
Yeah, especially here with these SR10s having to turn in through 3 and slam on the brakes and drop the anchors to get woed up into turn number 4 so you don't Ross Chastain it and wall ride it around the outside of that turn. Super tough in these SR10s. I talked about it a little bit earlier on. I've mentioned this a lot throughout my time on the broadcast thus far this season, or the entire time I've been doing these broadcasts with the SR10 official series. These cars have such a molecularly thin line when it comes to getting on the brakes. 5% over that limit, and you end up locking up and going into the corner out of control and with not very clean underpants. Then if you don't hit the brakes hard enough, you're just going to skate off and hit the wall. There's a very fine line that you have to ride when it comes to these brakes in the car. And as I just said, you can lock up. These cars don't have traction control or ABS, which makes it an even tougher ask heading off through the cutting around this racetrack. Andre Castro, though, you mentioned this a couple of moments ago, Jeremy, holds on to a 1.7, nearly 1.8 second lead as it stands coming up to the halfway mark in this race. The Australian tracks have been a good happy hunting ground for him up to this point, as he won earlier on this season at Phillip Island. And looking through some of the other tracks he just won at, Road Atlanta was a race he won the week prior to that. He won a Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and he won the opening round at the Nürburgring Grand Prix track. Andre Castro has the most amount of wins out of anybody this season in the 2100 GMT broadcasted races. Howard Gullickson, your reigning champions, only won 1, albeit he's been a bit more consistent. Andre Castro hasn't showed up to some weeks, so that's part of the reason why he isn't involved in that series and official series championship battle. But Andre Castro is still an incredibly talented racer behind the wheel of these SR10s, a real life racer as well, has some experience in the Euro NASCAR championship, if my memory serves me correctly. So we take a look at another slow motion angle of this Rudolf Nagel and others collision. Nagel, unfortunate for him to get a piece of that action, but that was poetry in motion. Need to play some old classical music to that. But getting back to the point I was raising, Andre Castro still holds on to that lead very, very quick as we see Kettle Larson scrape the wall, and we'll have to get in contact with him to replace that camera on the side of the race car.
Well, and you talk about Andre Castro, you're not a Team USA scholarship recipient. if you don't have the talent to back it up. So there's no surprise here seeing him at the front and seeing him eventually, every once in a while also you see him in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So that's something to watch out for as well. And he opens up a 2-second gap, but I'll tell you what, part and parcel that's because of this battle between Barry, Lip, and Larson. You see them just using every inch of the racetrack because they're paying for every bit of the racetrack going down there. Now Barry through Forest Elbow able to open up just a little bit of a gap, but you can easily open up that gap. But that gap's going to get eaten up as you head into the chase if you just set yourself up just an inch too long.
And as we get into the second half of this race, I think these drivers are going to maybe force this issue a little bit more as Kettle Larson and Christoph Lipp battling on the top of your screen for P3 as there's a battle for 10th involving Andreas Friedrich and Heinz Braun. These two Germans dueling down into the chase. And look at that closing off as that was a big one involving Larson and Christoph Lipp. They came to blows heading off through the chase and they have speared off. Look at that, Christoph Lipp with major damage on that race car. He's got to tow back to pit lane. That has thrown that lead pack fight into absolute pandemonium as now we've got Matt Jestrenbakken and Havard Gullikson maybe going to start to battle here in the not too far off future. That was big. That was a battle for P3, and that's allowed Rafa Blanco to slip his way up into a podium spot. Absolute disaster for Gullikson as he looks to get past his teammate for 6th.
Yeah, you definitely want to be careful around the chase because it can just go wrong so quick, as we just saw there. So hopefully we'll get that replay. But yeah, Rafa Blanco in the catbird seat, and that's how you win championships. You just set yourself up for possibly a position like that, as we see Larson, his point of view of the crash. And yeah, just the door was just shut too early, as not sure if Larson didn't know that Lip was there, but not a good way to end the race.
And the fact those two cars don't have a meatball flag is incredible. But I will say, looking in the sim, Christoph Lipp apologizing for that incident, the sportsman there. Christoph Lipp, a very quick driver here in the world of Radical SR10s. In fact, is the reigning Radical European champion, won that in 2024. Very quick racer, an unfortunate mistake there. Heading down into the chase again proves how difficult it is to get these cars woed up into the turns. Even a multi-series, a multi-year veteran like Christoph Lipp gets it a little bit wrong, heading all through there. Tough moment to be sure. It's music to the ears of James Barry, who now has just about an unobstructed view of P2, and I don't think he will be able to reel in Andre Castro unless Castro has a mistake, which, hey, we've seen plenty of drivers who are veterans of the series have screw-ups at this point in the race. May end up seeing one with Castro. Hey, I've seen stranger things. I'm not talking about the show on Netflix.
Friedrich, Braun, and Handke going into the chase as Braun looks to the inside, thinks better of it. Don't want to take out another one of those cars down there through the chase. That's a pretty expensive mistake, but nonetheless, Braun having to hold off Handke as well, not to lose anything. And look who's also coming to play. It's Kettle Larson in the 8th. So this 3-car battle for 8th now turning into a 4-car battle for 8th.
Yeah, and as these packs begin to form, it'll just snowball from there. We're going to end up seeing a driver like, I don't know, Kim Andre and Bjorklund maybe get involved in this battle as well. Don't think we'll see anyone else get involved in it, as back from Kim Andre and Bjorklund, you find Joseph Dietz currently running in 13th, and he is about 4 seconds back. So don't think we're going to see that battle grow anymore if Kim Andre and Bjorklund gets involved in it. But hey, who knows? We could see a driver fall back into that. Maybe one of these two if they come to blows. I would doubt it, though, and that would be a real kick in the shins for both of these racers. The two IGL Coatings teammates of Matt Jestrenbakken and Havard Gullikson, they're running in P6 and P7 at the present moment, and Gullikson maybe hoping to get the move done just so he can reel in his main championship rival, this man, Rafa Blanco, in the number 16 car. One thing that may be a blessing to Havard Gullikson, we can kind of see it there as he was heading through the top end of the circuit, and you can see him scrape the wall even though he was about 3 feet off it, at least from our production feed. He, looking through in the sim, and no discredit to him, he's a very quick driver, but his internet isn't as quick as him, and if there is some sort of disconnect, that would be a big swing when it comes to that championship. For now, though, Rafa Blanco's out there on the racetrack and is running in 4th. Philip Vandenherk, who won the very first Radical SR10 official race that I broadcasted all the way back in March of 2023, is currently running right behind. He shows up to these big racetracks, whether it be the Nordschleife or Bathurst, and he always puts on a show. You can see him maybe trying to give a little bit of a bump draft there to Rafa Blanco, heading down the Conrad straightaway off into the chase as the battle for 8th is flaring up. Look at that. That's Heinz Braun and Andreas Friedrich, the two Germans dueling down into the chase. That's Heinz Braun jumping his way up into 8th.
Yeah, Braun tried that move a lap earlier. It was too far away to make anything happen, but no surprise here that he's able to make that happen as we watch this battle for third really heat up between Blanco and Van der Heerk going into Hell Corner. A little bit too far away for Van den Heerk to make anything happen. Now they go down the mountain straight, and that'll give him time to kind of assess, think about where he wants to make the move. He can make it into Quarry Bend, or does he wait to do it into Cutting? No, he's going to try and make it here. A little bit of a bump draft right under that rear wing you see on the top part of your screen. Van den Heerk is too far away as Blanco able to get out of the brakes just a little bit easier. And this is a corner where you can easily trail brake. I think it's one of the more trail breakable corners here in the circuit. Now sets himself up for the Cutting. And it's going to be interesting. We got about, what, 4 laps to go. Hopefully nobody hits the wall hard, but the way these drivers are really using the walls as bumpers, it worries me for how the later stages of the race are going to go.
Yeah, these drivers clearly are throwing caution to the wind because these SR10s, they are rather aero sensitive. A bit of damage can really sacrifice your speed heading off through the corners, and considering how draft heavy these cars are as well, you pick up a small little tweak to one of the fenders on these race cars, or maybe a tweak to the splitter, or just a tweak to the side of your race car, period. You're going to end up feeling like you're dragging a parachute heading down the straightaways, which around a track like this, I mean, obviously, you think of Bathurst, you think of the Tyne Twisties, you think of the top end of the circuit heading off through the likes of McPhilmy Park, heading through the Cutting, Griffin's Bend, the Dipper, Skyline. You think of sections like that, Force Elbow, for instance. Y'all also have to consider the massively long straightaways that we've got around this racetrack, and that's the reason why Philip Van den Heerk has been able to get that move done on Rafa Blanco, does it with authority down into the chase. That shows off how powerful the draft is in these SR10s. These cars can get up to an 8-mile-an-hour speed boost just being in the coattails of the car right in front of them, and we just saw that guy put on full display. Philip Van den Heerk now occupying the final podium spot.
Friedrich and Braun also in a battle with Hankey. Friedrich loses 2 spots as Braun tries to make a pass on him through the chase right now. We're on board, though, with our points leader, Blanco. Now back to Van den Heerk, looking at your points leader as they go down into the mountain straight. Yeah, plenty of great battles here as we are rounding out the end of this race. It's amazing how fast the laps go. Let's see what Blanco does. Does he try and move on the inside of Quarry Bend? Not yet, but still plenty of time to make a move here as this battle for the bottom step of the podium really looking nice.
Yeah, it's looking like a really good battle at the present moment. These two, some of the best that the SR10s have to offer here on iRacing, and we are going to be seeing them battle tooth and nail all the way through to the checkered flag. Will Rafa Blanco really fight this, though? Even though he's lost out on a spot, Harvard Gullickson, his main championship rival, with only a week and some change left to go in this season. This is the second to last round of this championship, so looking good for Rafa Blanco. A good result like this, and may not be the most flashy and standout performance in the world, but what is it at the end of this season to just make up 1 spot? It can make a difference to some, but for Rafa Blanco, he's still in front of Matt Jestrenbakken, not Matt Jestrenbakken, Matt Jestrenbakken's teammate, I should say, of Havard Gullickson. He's still in front of Gullickson. If Gullickson was in the race lead, maybe I would risk it if I was Rafa Blanco, but otherwise, I don't really see a point of really forcing this issue too much. You're in a good spot, you're running in 4th around a racetrack like this, as we've seen with many other drivers, veterans of the series, having bits of drama heading off through the chase and other sections of this track. An attempt at an overtake, instead of resulting in you jumping up a spot, could result in you dropping down 5. So Rafa Blanco, I'm sure he's weighing up that risk versus reward in his head, but I don't know, if I was him behind the wheel of that race car, I wouldn't risk it. I would take the good points day.
Yeah, take the good points day because, you know, there's a lot of areas where, yeah, you can make a little mistake, but still, the walls like to suck you in here at Mount Panorama. Anywhere from Quarry Bend all the way over to Forest Elbow, 1 wrong move, your race is over. But again, like I said, even the grass here from Forest Elbow all the way over to Quarry Bend, it really is way too inviting. As we take a look at the bottom part of your screen, as Hankey tries to catch up to Braun going through Quarry Bend. Not going to make anything happen. We've not seen many passers through there with good reason, because I mentioned walls close in and it's very inviting to end your race.
Yeah, the walls around this racetrack are so ominous. Doesn't even matter if they're multicolored. You could paint these walls baby pink and baby blue, and they would still be terrifying for these racers. Heading through in these race cars, where one small mistake could just send you straight into a barrier. They are threatening. They loom over you with terror and fear being struck into your heart whenever you run around here. Doesn't matter what car you're in. It could be a Formula V without gas heading downhill on this racetrack, and you'd still be a little bit nervous of those walls. So these drivers gotta dance with the devil, so to speak, running around this racetrack, manage that game of risk versus reward, and just have a good race car at the very end of this. With the amount of veterans we've seen drop out of this race, including your race winner last time out at VIR of Packy Caruso, and had an incident in the early stages of this race. It's a track that you can get a good result out of just by not even risking it. You don't have to throw caution to the wind. Just be there at the end, and you'll be golden. That was a move from Nikos Handcuts, heading down into the chase. Gets that move done to jump his way up into P8 as Andre Castro has started the final lap. One more lap of racing action here at Bathurst, and for Castro, he's on track for his 5th win of this season and the 5th win of these 2100 GMT broadcasted races. Castro, very quick driver in that number 3 car, has a 2.2-second gap, but these two drivers on the top of your screen are covered by nothing. That's Blanco getting a good run coming out of turn number 1 down the mountain straight away to jump his way up into 3rd. Philip Van den Herk, though, he's still close.
Van den Herk using a little bit of an inside exit coming off of Hell Corner. It's kind of interesting. I wonder if he's setting himself up knowing that Blanco is basically the driver that really needs this podium spot. We'll see what happens as you see Friedrich falling out of the top 10 on our tower, but this is a great battle here between Blanco and Van der Herk, making their way through Reed Park into Solman Park. Come through the skyline here shortly, but I've got to say, I think Van den Herk's playing a little bit of chess here.
That is absolutely correct, Jeremy. I think you're absolutely right. He is probably thinking, you know what? I either hold on to this spot heading down into turn number 2 and then lose it in the run down into the chase, or I can let him go by, just suck up the dirty air heading off to the top end of the track, then get a good run at force elbow and lick the stamp and send it to get a move done to jump your way up into the podium spots. Will Rafa Blanco fight this 2-2 hard is a question that I've got. 0.6 of a second between those two racers coming out of this section. You'll see that gap slowly but surely go down. Now it is closing up between Blanco and Philip Van den Herk. They get up to speed, and that's when that draft really starts to play its own. Meanwhile, for Andre Castro, he's on track for another win this season. First time he'll be able to grab a checkered flag in these 2100 GMT broadcasted races since week 7 at Phillip Island. But for Andre Castro, it's another Aussie victory for the American. Andre Castro wins this race here at Bathurst today. He grabs a checkered flag in convincing fashion over James Berry in P2, and Rafa Blanco, I believe, will be able to hold on to the final podium spots and finish this race in 3rd. Philip Van den Herk, maybe not close enough heading off to the top end of that track, and as much as the draft is strong in these race cars, the dirty air is strong too. That may have been part of the reason why Rafa Blanco dropped down a bit. Well, I should say Philip Van den Herk dropped down a bit, and Rafa Blanco jumped up into a comfortable P3 at the end of this race. As you can see, the rest of the drivers crossed that start-finish line to end off a 12-lap duel here at Bathurst for the second to last round of this season. As I think I see Rafa Blanco burn it down. He must be feeling good about his chances heading into the last week of this season, considering that Harvard Gullickson, he ended up finishing in front of his teammate, but it's still a P6 result for him in this race, which is not what he had in mind at all. As these drivers bring it down and run it to a conclusion. I think we're going to get those results loaded up here in a couple of moments' time, and for now, though, we got a fantastic view. Actually, that's Kim Andre Bjorklund doing the burnout there. So, hey, he earned it. He got a good result at the end of this day, the final car inside the top 10. But here are your results. Andre Castro wins it in convincing fashion, and he set the fastest lap of the race on the final lap as well, which I think was even quicker than his pole time. Andre Castro, he was on rails in that number 3 car. He wins it. James Berry finishes in 2nd in the number 5, and that's Rafa Blanco running at our podium in 3rd. In P4, it's going to be Philip Van den Herk. In 5th, it'll be Sebastian Lip. P6 will go to our reigning champion and at one point championship leader of Havard Gullickson. His teammate Matt Jestrom-Bakken will finish right behind in 7th. Nikos Handcut will finish this race in 8th in front of Heinz Braun in 9th, and Kim Andre Bjorklund rounding out your top 10.
At 11th, it's Andreas Friedrich, then Kettle Larson. Joseph Dietz finishes off in 13th, Luke Crowley 14th, 15th goes to Logan Edwards. 16th, Menno de Graaf. 17th, Lars Eriks Friedland. Then you've got the last car on the lead lap, Franco Alberti. Jorge Gonzaga and Rudolf Nagel round out your drivers who were lap down.
Then looking through the rest of the drivers that we have classed in this race, it's Christoph Lipp, Chris Wett, Raul Paracero, my apologies there. He finishes this race in 23rd, and Packy Caruso, the final car classified in this race. All of them getting involved in incidents of their own and punching out before the halfway marker, just a little bit over it in the case of Christoph Lipp. But those are your results at the end of this race. And Jeremy, we had some drivers waiting off in the interview waiting area, so I will let you have dibs on our P1 finisher, our race winner for the 5th time this season, that being Andre Castro.
Yeah, let's talk to our winner, Andre Castro. Bud, congratulations. That was a pretty dominating lights of flag victory.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. It was fun. I just really enjoyed this racetrack, and once I got the pole, just knew that I kind of had to. I was extending a lot over Christoph in the downhill section first couple laps, so I knew once I got out of the draft, that could be good if I just kind of kept the pace I was going. So yeah, and in the midsection of the race, I was definitely cautious, definitely going into Falcon Tire Corner just because it's so easy to lock up there. But yeah, did just enough. So really fun race, and glad it played out the way it did. And yeah, James was quick. We're kind of trading laps there, but just managed to hold on.
Yeah, it's such a difficult racetrack, as you mentioned. A lot of places where it can go wrong. We saw a lot of wall hits and they were just brushes, but how did that affect your race?
I mean, yeah, like I said, I just, really love this track, and felt like I always had a little bit in the pocket. It's not like I was, half a second or more off of what I could have done, but it was, a couple tenths maybe. So I was kind of trying to leave that on the table in the dangerous areas just to make sure I got to the end. But there were definitely, I think twice I remember where it got pretty sketchy. I didn't actually touch the wall, but got pretty close a couple times. So I think, yeah, even if you have it pretty figured out, it's always going to be tough around here just because the street circuit nature, especially in the high speed and elevation change. But yeah, in the end it was just enough. So yeah, I had fun out there.
Next week we go over to Brazil, to Interlagos. First question, will you make it? Second of all, what are your thoughts going into that race?
I don't know. I'd probably make it, but we'll see. And that's always a really fun track. I think that one's definitely going to be a bit more draft heavy, so definitely not as confident there as I was here. But it should be a good race. I think people will have their elbows out, and it'll just be about staying clean and qualifying near the front and being there at the end. I think it's going to be hard to break away unless get lucky somehow. But we'll see. Should be fun. It's a great track to watch and a great track to drive.
All right, congrats, Andre. Can't wait to see what happens next week.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Ron, I gotta say, anytime it seems like Andre Castro's up there, doesn't matter where he qualifies, seems like he gets up near the front really quickly. Who you got?
And I've been able to have a chat with a man who I've probably talked about many, many times before on broadcast in the past. James Berry, welcome into the commentary booth, man. It looked like a pretty well-composed drive for you here at Bathurst, finishing in second. How about you talk us through that race here today?
Yeah, well, I'm happy with how the race went. Quali was good, but not perfect. Put me a bit behind where I maybe would have liked to have been, but I made my way forwards. I just felt the guys in front of me were, I don't know, not driving maybe at their peak, and people don't want to battle too much when, they want to stick with Andre, who's so fast. So they weren't kind of defending too hard for me, so I made my way forward. And I guess good job I did, because in the end there was a bit of chaos behind me, which then made the rest of the race a bit more relaxing. And I didn't really ever believe that I could catch Andre, so I just enjoyed doing some hot lapping of this fun track.
Well, it's certainly fun in these SR10s, but can be very hard to get the combination nailed down. So I want to ask you about your thoughts heading into this weekend for the latest round of the Radical European Championship. Going to be running here for an hour. You're a driver in that series and entering it as the vice champion for 2024. So I want to ask you what your thoughts are heading into the Radical European Championship race this upcoming Sunday here on RaceSpot.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more difficult than today. I think it's such a long race, and for me, I I don't have a proper sim rig. I have like some crappy armchair that I sit in, and an hour race here is gonna make my back hurt quite a lot. So I'm kind of dreading it a little bit, but I mean, I just have to kind of clench my teeth and go for it because clearly I've got good pace. So let's just see what I can do. But I'm sure guys like Christoph and Havard are gonna be on better form, I think, on Sunday than they were today.
I'm not really sure if it applies to sim racing, but the saying "no pain, no gain" in this case, it would be gaining in the points. So I guess maybe it'll work. I'm not entirely sure. But James, I want to ask you about your thoughts as well. Coming into the last week of this season here in Season 2 of 2025, Interlagos will be the final race of this official season. What are your thoughts heading into that race?
Well, it's a fun track. I think the championship, I don't think I'm in contention to win the championship. I think it's between Havard and Rafa, I think. But no, I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot of drivers who will be very fast there, and it will be a really competitive race. And I think it's a really fun track for racing, that one. It's got a nice balance of overtaking and defending on the back straight. So it should be good fun.
Yeah, I remember the Americas Championship ran there last year, and that was an absolute barn burner of a race. So looking forward to the official action in 1 week's time here on RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network. But James, before we let you go and celebrate this P2 result, maybe get some pain-relieving medication for what's going to happen to you on Sunday. Is there anybody you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
I'll shout you guys out RaceSpot just for, since we started the broadcast on RaceSpot, I think it's been an extra level of kind of excitement and production value. So it's really enjoyable to see the broadcasts from you guys. So yeah, shout out to you guys for what you do.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, thank you very much for joining us here in the commentary booth, James, and looking forward to seeing you out on track for the final round of the official season in 1 week's time, and seeing you on the broadcast this upcoming Sunday for the European Championship.
Yeah, cheers guys, see you later, bye.
And that right there was James Berry, our P2 finisher at the end of this race here at Bathurst, and it looks like they will be the only drivers to have a chat with us. Two very different racers, but very quick drivers in these SR10s as well. But Jeremy, Interlagos, 1 week's time to round this season to a conclusion. Talk about a test of skill for these drivers. I mean, very hard to say that after the race that we just had at Bathurst, but Interlagos is still going to be a test for these racers as well.
No, it really will, and it just goes to show that, especially what Andre said too, it's going to be a draft-heavy track, and I think anyone who watches any kind of racing around Interlagos knows how quick this circuit can be. So I, for one, am excited to see what happens next week.
Yeah, and I'm going to be looking forward to it as well. And you can catch all of the action here on both RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network every single Friday at 2100 GMT or 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time here on the East Coast of the U.S. where I am. These races never disappoint. Fantastic racing action week in and week out from the SR10 official series. And folks, this isn't a league. As I just said, it is the official Radical SR10 series here on the iRacing platform. So if you want to be a part of these races, you can sign up, make it to Top Split, and you'll appear here on RaceSpot TV. But as for this week's broadcast for week number 11 of the iRacing Radical Esports Cup here at Bathurst, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mons, Jeremy Scott joining me in the commentary booth, and Ramiro Augustine Cisneros doing a wonderful job working on the cameras and the graphics in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you also very much for watching this broadcast on RaceSpot TV tonight, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.